And the whole agenda is to create a one world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is given me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what
everything,
you sell.
Everything is in there.
Discussions.
I met Rockefeller through a female attorney I knew who called me up one day and said, one of the Rockefellers would like to meet you. I had made a video called Mad as Hell, and he'd seen the video and wanted to meet me and knew I was running for governor of Nevada. So sure, I'd love to meet him. And I met him and I liked him, and he was a very, very smart man. And we used to talk and share ideas and thoughts. And he's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told him what the event was going to be, but there was going to be an event, and out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order. And we go after Chavez in Venezuela.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. More than 35 countries are giving crucial support, from the use of naval and air bases, to help with intelligence and logistics, to the deployment of combat units. Good afternoon. On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. We are joined in this operation by our staunch friend, Great Britain. Other close friends, including Canada, Australia, Germany, and France, have pledged forces as the operation unfolds.
US President Donald Trump is turning up the pressure on Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. In a television interview this morning, Trump warned that sending troops into the country is an option. Pressure is coming from Europe too. France and Austria have said again today they'll endorse self-declared interim President Juan Guaido if Maduro doesn't call elections before the end of the day. Other countries are expected to do the same. In Venezuela, both sides held mass rallies.
Oil-rich Venezuela is in the midst of a recession of wartime proportions. That already has regional consequences. For months, several thousand migrants have been leaving this country every day. But now what's happening here is having global implications too. The United States says the only solution is for President Maduro to go. Washington has sanctioned him and almost his entire cabinet and restricted Venezuela's access to financial markets. The US is calling out China, which it says is bankrolling the Maduro government and just prolonging the misery.
Within our own hemisphere, Beijing has extended a lifeline to the corrupt and incompetent Maduro regime in Venezuela.
That lifeline the Vice President mentioned is a $5 billion loan that Venezuela said it had agreed with China shortly before Maduro visited Beijing last month. China, however, never confirmed that it is providing any new financing. China has over the last decade lent Venezuela more than $50 billion, which is mostly paid
Beijing
back
is
in
also
oil.
impacting-
Pence says that has saddled the Venezuelan people with debt, possibly for years to come. But that's not how the government here portrays the relationship.
Saludo a toda China. Que viva China!
Hours after Pence spoke, President Maduro paid tribute to a Chinese delegation that's been involved in constructing housing projects in Venezuela. The China-Venezuela partnership is mutually beneficial.
China shows you can be a great power without being an empire, a great power to construct the common destiny of humanity.
And it wasn't just China's relationship with Venezuela that Pence took aim at in his speech. He also alluded to other diplomatic moves in this region.
Daniel chapter 9, and I tell all about it in the book, but it's divided into two parts. Each half of 7 years would be 3.5 years. It starts when a treaty is made, Daniel 9:27, that allows the Jews to rebuild their temple. To me, God will sort all that out. But the last half of this 70th week is called the time of tribulation in Matthew chapter 21. So in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all three of those passages, Matthew 24, Matthew and Mark 13 and Luke 21, all talk about, they start off, Jesus' disciples asked him two questions. Lord, when are you coming? And what's the sign we should watch for? And in all three, he answers their question. He said there's going to be a time of great tribulation. And then, after the tribulation, the sun and the moon will go dark. And there's the 10 times that's mentioned in the Bible. And then, I'm going to come call up my children. Wrath is what God does to the world, and everybody tries to squeeze it all into 7 years. Here's the problem. In the middle of this 70th week of Daniel, which would be 3.5 years into it, the Bible says the Antichrist will break his treaty and desolate the temple, which means they have to build their temple during this first period. And they could build that thing in a few months. I mean, they are chomping at the bit, ready to go. They got everything ready for it. Get it done. So somewhere in here, they're going to build their temple. Then he's going to break the treaty and probably, I don't know, sacrifice a pig on an altar or something like Antiochus Epiphanes did in 128 BC, 168 BC. Daniel was asked, or talking to the angel, he said, how long is the temple going to be desolate? And the answer was 2,300 days. That's Daniel chapter 8, I think verse 14 or so. Wait a minute. 3.5 years is 1,260 days. I've got them all listed here. Sometimes it's called 1260, sometimes it's called 3.5, sometimes it's called 42 months. All works out the same. So if the temple is desolate for 2,300 days, well, that's more than 1260 by a long shot. So if the temple is desolate for 2,300 days, that means the temple is desolate past the time of the end of the 7 years. So there's an extra 1,040 days. That's almost 3 years. There's 1,040 days. This is the time of the wrath of God. If you read the book of Revelation, the first 6 chapters talk about tribulation, a whole lot. Tribulation is what the world does to us. But wrath is not mentioned till chapter 7. And from there on, it talks about wrath. And at the end of chapter 6, Revelation 6:12, it says, the sun and the moon go dark. Out of here. So the rapture takes place at the end of chapter 6. After that, it's the wrath of God falling on the world. that takes place in the day of the Lord. I was confused for years reading about the day of the Lord. It's mentioned like 200 times in the Old Testament. I got a bunch of the verses right in here on the chart. The day of the Lord is this 1,000-year period. It's divided up into two parts. The first part is a time of wrath, almost 3 years. We are gone. We're up in here at the marriage supper of the Lamb having a wonderful time. The lost down on earth are experiencing the wrath of God. We are not appointed unto wrath. We'll be gone.